Reading, summarizing, and responding to nonfiction. If you remember from last week's lessons, we talked about why nonfiction is important, specifically why reading nonfiction is important, and why text annotation is important. Certainly you want to be able to read nonfiction to be an informed citizen, to make informed decisions, so that you are a better participant in our society. And certainly text annotation helps you to actively read texts so that you truly understand what it is that you're reading, processing, you're thinking through the reading itself, and certainly it helps you to better retain and understand the information. We also talked about the fact that you should critically read nonfiction. You should start by examining that title and author. Think about the purpose or the perspective of the writer. We talked about skimming the article before you actually annotate it, looking for the thesis, supporting details, identifying the tone, and asking yourself ultimately what is the point of this writing. We talked about really taking a look at the article in terms of where it's placed in history, biographically, and certainly culturally, what's going on within society as you are experiencing, as you're reading actively this article. And we mentioned the idea that you want to make sure you take a look at the writer's intended audience. You know, if you remember the journal entry that we did last week, we took a look certainly at that later start time for school, and we had talked about the fact that that news article probably wasn't targeted at you as students, but more at your parents, because those are the individuals who would push for later start times, obviously, to benefit you, their children. We had talked about, if you remember, kind of putting to the test some of these ideas of really identifying the author and the purpose and thinking about the history and the culture and the context with Hitler quiz that we had taken a look at, and certainly we had given a couple statements and we had kind of identified who would have said them, and certainly the meaning of those quotes definitely changes depending on whether Taylor Swift or whether Adolf Hitler made the statement, of course. From there, about some ways to read nonfiction critically. We had talked about the fact that you have to interact with the text. You need to write down questions on the text itself. You need to make predictions regarding the text, and certainly you need to make inferences. You need to take what it is that you know and use those ideas to sort of guide you perhaps to a conclusion, to kind of read between the lines, if you will. We talked about the fact that you need to identify words that you don't know. Either look them up. Again, you all have a cell phone with a dictionary in your pocket, or use the context in which the word is used in order to figure out its meaning. We had talked about the fact that making connections is extremely important. Text to text, text to self, text to world. I give you the example of the heroin article that I'll give you in a few days here, and certainly the text to text, self, and world connections I am able to make with regards to that particular topic. We had talked about highlighting and the fact that you can use highlighting, but you want to use it specifically. Remember, you don't want to get highlighter disease. Certainly, I mentioned that you should jot down the most important information from the article kind of at the end. You want to summarize the article to get those main points, and certainly you want to evaluate the article talking about or reflecting on what its purpose really is, as we mentioned prior. You know, in order to help you understand these ideas, I mentioned the idea of SOAPs, certainly as kind of a reading strategy. You know, if you don't remember the previous things that we talked about, consider when reading an article, what is the subject? What's the general topic or content that's contained within the article? What is the occasion? What is the time and the place of the piece? Certainly, who is the intended audience, as we discussed? What is, again, the purpose of the article? What's the reason behind it? And who is the speaker of that particular article? Again, knowing a little bit of background about the author can honestly help you to understand the point of view from which the article is coming, and certainly the purpose for that article. So we discussed all of these things certainly in the past number of days. But I'd like you to put those things to the test, because when you go to college, you're really going to be expected to do two things on a level. You are going to be expected to summarize nonfiction passages, and you're going to be expected to respond to nonfiction passages. Now, in reality, responding to nonfiction passages we're going to take a look at, probably not today, but tomorrow or perhaps even on Thursday. But we are going to tackle summarization of nonfiction passages today. Summarizing a nonfiction passage, after you've annotated that passage carefully, I think you should be doing a couple of things that are very important. I think you should start off with the title of the text, and certainly include the name of the author, and the author's thesis. What is the main idea? As we mentioned prior, certainly in that AIDS article that I had given you as a model, every one of these articles has a thesis, has kind of a main idea, a point to the article embedded in it. You want to look for that, and you want to articulate that in the topic sentence of your summary paragraph. Certainly, your summary paragraph should maintain a very neutral tone as well. It should be objective. Remember, your goal is not to respond to the article or give your point of view. At this point, it's simply to give us a brief, basic outline, a map, if you will, of the article in the form of a paragraph of summary. To that end, you want to use the third-person point of view, and you certainly want to use the present tense as if what is being written about or what is being summarized is happening right at that point in time. You obviously don't want to use the author's direct words. You want to use your own words. You certainly don't want to include quoted material within a good, effective summary, and you want to make no statements that are unsupported by the text. Additionally, a really good summary of a nonfiction article should be concise. It should present the key points, but not all of the details, not all of the facts and the figures, but instead just kind of the key sub-points that support that thesis statement. You want to put everything in the same order as the original. You don't necessarily want to change things around. If you do so, certainly you're suggesting that the author did not have things in the right order, and that at this point is not something that you want to do. Again, you're not responding to the author whether you agree or disagree at this point. And certainly you need a very effective concluding sentence as well that kind of ties all of the author's thoughts together and brings your summary to an effective close. In the end, keep in mind, when you are summarizing an article, providing that one paragraph summary, don't make any conclusions about the original, its audience, or anything that's related to the text. Your job, again, is to provide us with a brief, accurate map of the original nonfiction article. Thank you very much, and at this point, you may get together with your partners and begin to compare your annotations, and then I'd like you to write a partner summary of the Weed Whacked article by David Frum. Thank you, and Carpe Diem. We'll see you tomorrow.